Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain a British horror thriller film from 2025, titled The Bayou. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. Deep in the Swarm Forest, a group of terrorists operates a secret drug laboratory, where they kidnap and force people to produce illegal drugs and chemicals. One day, a DEA squad ambushes the lab, triggering a violent gunfight between the agents and the terrorists. During the chaos, one of the terrorists throws a chemical container, which spills into the nearby river. As the substance spreads through the water, it begins to affect the alligators, making them unusually aggressive. The scene then shifts to a biology class, where we meet Kyle, a young student. The professor asks why apex predators tend to be exceptionally aggressive, and Kyle responds that it's their way of ensuring survival. After class, Kyle meets her best friend, Alice. The two have been planning a trip to the Florida Keys to scatter Kyle's brother's ashes and say their final goodbye. However, Kyle is disappointed to learn that Alice has invited two of their brother's friends, Malika and Sam, to join them. Originally, Alice was supposed to drive Kyle to Florida in her car, but she sold it because she needed money. That's why she invited Malika and Sam to use their car for the trip. During a pool party at a motel, Alice tries to convince Kyle to move on from her brother Jamie's death, but the conversation upsets Kyle. Frustrated, she walks away and later watches an old video of Jamie, recalling memories from the day he died. The next day, the group sets out on their trip to Florida, and along the way, they stop at a gas station, where Kyle notices a news report warning that alligators have become increasingly aggressive and are attacking people.
You won't take care now, you hear?
Instead of driving the entire way, Malika suggests taking a plane to reach their destination faster, despite knowing that Kyle is afraid of flying. At the airport, they meet Frank, a hungover and cynical pilot, along with his co-pilot, Ray. Also joining the flight are an elderly couple, Maud and Clarence, a businessman named Rufus, and another couple, Zoe and Dom. During the flight, Rufus starts making phone calls, despite being warned that using a phone could interfere with the plane's systems. When Clarence tries to intervene, he hits his head against the interior of the plane, causing an unexpected disturbance that affects the aircraft's engines. Frank and Ray lose control of the plane, and it crashes into 375 miles of mosquito-infested swampland, and everyone on board is knocked unconscious. When they regain consciousness, they manage to escape from the wreckage, but Zoe has suffered an injury due to the impact, and tragically, Clarence does not survive, leaving Maud devastated. After tending to Zoe's injury, Frank realizes that Ray is missing, and despite searching the area, he is nowhere to be found. Malika suggests they stay put and wait for a rescue team, but Kyle reveals that no one is coming for them because Frank was flying an off-the-book seaplane, meaning no one knows they're missing. With no radio, no signal, and no way to call for help, the group faces the harsh reality of their situation. Dehydration, panic, and the lack of food begin to set in, and they realize that their only chance of survival is to work together. As they assess their surroundings, Alice notices something in a nearby bush, and when she investigates, she discovers a nest of alligator eggs. Just then, the group spots Ray floating in the water. Frank quickly moves to rescue him, but before he can reach him, an alligator suddenly bursts from the water and attacks Ray. The group is left in shock after witnessing Ray's brutal death, and realizing the danger lurking in the swamp, they decide to move forward. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Clarence's body has been buried near the swampland, and over the swamp, an alligator returns to its nest and discovers that all its eggs are missing, except for one. Meanwhile, the survivors sit around a campfire, and Kyle suggests that they should take turns watching throughout the night to stay alert for any potential threats. Trying to lighten the mood, Frank shares his whiskey with the group, hoping to ease their nerves. In the middle of the night, while relieving himself, Rufus hears his phone ringing, and as he picks it up, he is suddenly ambushed and killed by an alligator. The next morning, the group stumbles upon Rufus' lifeless body, realizing the swamp is even more dangerous than they thought. As they search for a safer place, they spot a cabin nearby and decide to head toward it. As they carefully make their way through the swamp, Kyle suddenly notices alligators hiding in the bushes, and she quickly warns everyone to stop moving. As the group discusses how to escape, an alligator lunges at Maud, grabbing her and dragging her away. Panic erupts as more alligators emerge from their hiding spots, charging toward the survivors. The group runs frantically toward the cabin, barely making it inside. However, an alligator bites Zoe's leg. The others struggle to pull her free, finally managing to drag her inside before slamming the door shut. As they try to catch their breath, they suddenly hear Maud's desperate cries for help, and horrified, they listen as her screams are abruptly silenced, and the alligators leaves the cabin. That night, Kyle has a haunting nightmare about the day Jamie died. He was shot while trying to stop a robbery at a gas station. The next morning, Sam searches the cabin and discovers an old map. The group examines it and finds the location of a nearby building, which they believe could offer safety or supplies. Realizing that a search party won't come looking for them in such a remote area, they agree to leave the cabin and head toward the building. Before they set out, Kyle, being a biology student, shares a crucial survival tip. She explains that if an alligator grabs someone, the best way to escape is to punch it on the snout and gouge its eyes before it can fully lock its jaws. With a plan in place, they leave the cabin and follow the map's directions, and eventually, they reach a river, the same one they saw marked on the map. However, as they stand on the riverbank, they realize they have to find a way across while staying alert for alligators. Kyle analyzes the river's current and determines that it flows southeast, toward the sea, which aligns with the direction of the building marked on the map. She suggests building a raft to travel downriver, explaining that after last night's rainfall, the air is extremely humid, meaning the alligators are likely cooling off somewhere since they can't regulate their body temperature efficiently. However, Malika disagrees. She argues that building a raft will take too long, giving the alligators time to return. Instead, she suggests they go back to the cabin and wait for help, but the rest of the group believes that if they work together, they can build the raft quickly and increase their chances of survival. With no other clear options, they decide to gather materials and start constructing the raft, hoping to finish before the alligators return. Alice, Sam, and Frank venture into the woods to gather more logs, and on their way back, Alice spots an alligator lurking nearby, but instead of retreating, she impulsively attacks the alligator. Returning to the group, Alice tells them that the alligators are now fully awake. The group scrambles to get the raft onto the river, desperately trying to escape as the aggressive reptiles close in on them. Paddling as fast as they can, they soon realize they won't be able to outrun the alligators. In a heartbreaking decision, the injured Zoe sacrifices herself by jumping into the water to distract the creatures. The alligators swarm around her, dragging her under as the others watch in horror. Dom is devastated. Earlier, he had promised Zoe he would get her home safely, but there's no time to grieve. The survivors push forward, and after what feels like an eternity, they finally reach the building marked on the map, which is the drug lab that was ambushed by the DEA squad at the beginning of the movie. As they cautiously step inside, they find bloodstains, bullet holes, and signs of a violent struggle, grim reminders of the deadly battle between the DEA and the terrorists. Frank suggests they split up to cover more ground and search for a radio or any working communication device to call for help. He instructs everyone to meet outside the building once they've searched their sections. Frank, Malika, and Alice head in one direction, while Kyle, Sam, and Dom take another path, hoping to find a radio or anything useful for their escape. As the group searches the building, Frank tricks Alice into checking something out in another room, leaving him alone with Malika, and it becomes clear that Frank has sinister intention. He confronts Malika, accusing her of being selfish, only thinking about herself and not caring if others die. Frank suddenly shoves her off a ledge, but Malika barely managed to grab onto a metal beam. Meanwhile, Kyle, Sam, and Dom come across an injured man, who warns them that the alligators are everywhere before dying. Just as Frank snaps out of his moment of cruelty, an alligator attacks him from above and drags him away. Hearing the commotion, the rest of the group rushes to the frightened Malika and pulls her to safety. They soon reach a large section of the facility, and right in front of them are several massive alligators. However, they appear to be sleeping, likely resting due to the humidity. At the far end of the room, Kyle spots a communication room, and if they can just make it across without waking the alligators, they might finally have a way to call for help. One by one, the group carefully tiptoes past the sleeping alligators, making their way toward the communication room, but when it's Sam's turn, his foot slips and he falls, making a noise that wakes the alligators. Suddenly, one of the alligators lunges at him, sinking its jaws deep into his skull, which leads to Sam's demise. Kyle rushes to the radio and manages to call for help. She gives their coordinates and desperately pleads for rescue, and just then, the power in the building suddenly went off. Kyle grabs a gun nearby, and the remaining survivors makes their way into another section of the building, where they come face to face with another massive alligator. Alice moves closer to the alligator, holding the egg she took from the swamp, believing it belongs to the creature. She hopes this will calm the reptile. However, the alligator lunges forward and bites off her hand. Kyle shoots the alligator, distracting it long enough for Dom and Malika to grab Alice and help her escape from the building. As the alligator begins to launch towards Kyle, she grabs a knife nearby and stabs the reptile in the eye, causing it to thrash in pain. Then, she notices a barrel of flammable liquid nearby, which she tossed towards the alligator, and set it on fire using her lighter. The remaining survivors, Kyle, Dom, Malika, and the severely injured Alice, make their way across a bridge. Soon, they spot a helicopter approaching in the sky and feel relieved as they realize help has finally arrived. Weeks later, Kyle travels to the Florida Keys with her brother's bike, and standing by the dam, she scatters his ashes into the water, saying her final goodbye. Back in the swampland, the camera pans over the wreckage of the drug lab, showing Frank, who is still alive but badly wounded, and as he giggles, the movie concludes. Okay guys, that's all the recap about the Bayou from 2025. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.